So thank you very much for joining us today. Glad to have you all with us. We're really excited to bring you our second version of our AI-assisted multi-finger caliper processing platform, which is called Clarity. We're not going to be boring you with PowerPoints. We're going to be showing you a live version of the workflow where we'll be concentrating on the new features in Clarity version 2. If we look back to version 1, a couple of years ago, we were starting something new there with automation and assistance. Um, the theme being to allow more people to get more accurate results faster than ever before. And with version 2, we are building on that. We're optimizing for more speed at every turn within every single processing module, but you'll find more speed, whilst we're also adding new features, which carry on that theme of enabling more people to achieve expert level results. Feature-wise, specifically, we're going to be looking at artificial intelligence and how we use that in our AI reporting module. We're going to look at time-lapse depth matching and how we can help you out there. A new calculation called Ovalised compensated maximum penetration, and we'll explain that for you. Along the way, we've got our first version of our 3D viewer, which took a little long to get in, but we're there now. So to kick things off, I'll ask Faris. I think it's probably hard to pick an aspect, just one aspect of V2
True.
to tell us about, but is there one that's grabbed your attention recently?
Yeah, there is definitely. I think one of the main new features that I really appreciated with this V2 is definitely the time lapse depth match because this new functionality is a true time saver. Because as you know, Joe, Corey, and I, we often deal with time lapse surveys, and having the data sets on depth is quite crucial. For the accuracy of the interpretation, you want to be sure that you're looking at the same feature, as simple as that. Before assuming that, for instance, if we're talking about penetration, this penetration has worsened, or if we're talking about deposition, this scale has thickened or reduced. So that's where this new time lapse feature comes in quite handy because even if your data set it seems on depth, when you compare to the baseline, like I think it will be the case for the data set I'm going to present today, but you still want to adjust and fine tune the depth correction. In this Clarity V2, enables you to do that in a matter of seconds. That's what really is impressive about that. And it will save you tons of time that can be used for more important stuff like the analysis itself, analyzing the corrosion rate, monitoring the features, how they, developed or reduced over time. Yeah, I think that's it. Without further ado, let's see a demo of this new feature. And just share my screen first. Okay. So I do have for this webinar a couple of data sets, and they are both, like you see, roughly 10,000 feet long. So there is a baseline survey that is going to be our reference today, as its name suggests. And we do have this data set, which is called the current data set. It's going to be our time-lapse survey. It is supposed to be mismatched a bit, though here, like I mentioned earlier, the correlation and the depth system is quite good, but there will be some slight mismatches like you're going to see in just a moment. The baseline already have the pipe ends ready, so it's all interpreted, all processed and interpreted. So that's an input from the client. So you're going to receive the process data set and the pipe end. So as you can see, all the picks, color picks are all done. But it's not the case for the current data set because that's a data set you just received from the client, and you want to do first, before the depth correction, the new feature, time-lapse depth correction, you want to do the pipe ends yourself first. I decided not to skip that part because it allows me to show you how quick, or remind you if you're already familiar with Clarity V1, to remind you how quick this process can be. And remember, we're talking about over 10,000 feet of data sets. So just open the joint ID window and then click Auto Detect. and then a matter of seconds, it will pick all the co connections. And remember, we're talking about over 10,000 feet, so over 300 connections. And I believe Corey do like
Yeah,
you you do like
I
this
love
feature.
I love the auto detect. Yeah, I use it every job, and it just seems like it finds so many of the joints, and I just have to tweak the completion items usually, and that's about it. So it saves
Yeah,
me a bunch of time.
yeah, it's such a time saver. And it's all done. It was a matter of maybe 15, 20 seconds instead of 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour of, tedious job. And you can always rename any completion item or whatever description you want to give to the joint. Here, for instance, we do have a couple of pop joints, so I'm going to rename them pop joints. So that's first one, and pop joint number two. And there it is. Now, let's do the depth correction. How to do it? You want to go in the depth correction tab and click on Prism time lapse match. And you want to bring in your data sets. So node A is going to contain a baseline, and the time lapse needs to be in node B. So as you can see, it has imported the data sets. The current survey is slightly longer. It has two extra joints. So now let's compute the time-lapse match is quite fast. Clarity has generated the table for us. For each and every pipe, every joint, we do have correction. As you can see from this plot here, we're talking about very fine micro adjustments to the depth. We do have a few outliers here towards the bottom of around 10,000, 10,400. We do have a couple of outliers that are slightly over 1 foot of correction. That's probably because of stick and slip. This outlier here is more significant. It's roughly 4 feet. It needed 4 feet correction actually, and that's joint number three in the time lapse, and it's called no data in the baseline. That's because they didn't log that area in the baseline. I believe the time lapse survey as well. They didn't log that zone as well. So that's where this mismatch came from, and it can be disregarded. So now let's just apply this table to our data set. So we obtain on depth data. Let's call it. Let's give it something a relevant name, current data dash on depth. So we know that that's the correlated. We can save the table for later use and click apply. And now Clarity will apply the depth correction. So we'll obtain two perfectly matching data sets.
I think this would have probably taken me a couple of hours to do joint by joint
Yeah,
at
that's
least.
that's I mean, yeah. Yeah. Every analyst present within the attendance, they will confirm that it's quite, time consuming. So here the data set on depth is ready. We can close the slightly off depth one, and we can do our side by side comparison. I'm gonna bring in the time lapse on the right hand side. So we can scroll down, scroll up, look for the features we want to talk about, and just analyze. For instance, if I choose this zone here and sync the two layouts or the two panels, I want to see how they compare. Look how exactly on depth we are between the baseline and the current data set. And now we do have these three features that look like localized ovalization. Yeah, this feature, um, as you can, evaluate them and how they progress over time. It looks like they didn't change a lot, but for that you need to calculate the penetration first. And since we're talking about localized ovalization feature, as you might know, it's very, very hard to accurately assess the penetration within non-circular joints. And that leads me to the other new big feature that Clarity V2 has to offer. And I believe that that's your favorite feature, Corey, right?
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to talk about. It's one that I've used quite a bit. So I'll take over from here. All right. So yeah, this data set, I wanted to highlight the ovality compensated maximum penetration. That's the main feature I wanted to show. Anyone that's seen caliper data, you can recognize right away that we have ovality in this well, and not just one, it's over an extended period. And anytime we're trying to report accurate penetration values in an oval pipe, it's a nightmare because anytime you have an increase in your maximum recorded diameter, that's going to directly affect what penetration value is reported. Which you can see here, I've actually plotted the percent penetration curve. This data set has already been fully processed. And you can see anytime this maximum diameter increases, your maximum penetration increases. It's a direct correlation. And that's a problem because we've already determined that this is just oval pipe. It's not true metal loss. So we would be reporting drastically exaggerated values. To further demonstrate that, what I'll do is I'll zoom in. Looks like we have a kind of a nasty oval feature here, and I'll highlight this in the cross section. So you can see in the cross section, we have a clearly ovalized cross section here, and anywhere you see this kind of orange color, that's going to demonstrate metal loss when we're reporting maximum penetrations because we're using a perfectly circular reference ID and OD to calculate your maximum penetration from. Well, with this new version of Clarity, whenever we centralize the data, Clarity is actually going to calculate new ID and OD values based on the recorded shape. And that's really nice because it's going to compensate for that oval recording. That's why it's called oval compensated maximum penetration. And we can see what it does by clicking on this use ovalized ID and OD button within the cross section. Now, if I go back and scan through and look at this oval, now look at the difference in the cross section. Now your ID and OD follow the shape that was recorded, and those are going to become your new baselines when you're actually trying to figure out what your maximum penetration is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually plot our new curve, OCMP, on the cross section. And I'm going to come in here to the settings, and I'm going to add the same OCMP curve so I can overlay it with my other reference curve. And just for fun and to aid, I'm also going to plot an ovality curve so we can see where the ovality starts in this data set. So I'm just going to change the color real quick so we can see the difference. And then I'm going to plot this ovality curve on the other side of the track. And this really does highlight the main differences we're seeing. So what I want to do is I want to go back up to the top because if we're looking at the blue curve right here on the right hand side, that's our ovality curve. We can see that there's hardly any ovality at all in the top of this survey. The ovality only starts kicking in down here, but we have a massive feature right up here, right above where the ovality kicks in. And if we're trying to determine, is that caused by ovality? Is it exaggerated or is it a real feature? Well, we can see when we compare the two penetration curves, the original circular reference curve is your black curve, and the new curve with the ovality compensation is your red curve. You can see that they very well match one another. They're nearly right on top of one another through this whole interval where we don't have hardly any ovality at all. And that's going to lead us to believe that this is a true penetrative feature. And we can see it on the cross section. If I highlight it here, you can see that there is metal loss here. And the rest of the shape is very well circular, so there's no problem there. But if we go down to the feature we were looking at before here, you can see how different the two penetration curves are. And this is where your peak ovality is showing itself. So if we look at this feature, we have a circular penetration value of 65%. But when we look at the ovality compensated value, it's less than 5%. So that's the
huge
real value
difference.
of this feature. It's huge. Before we would say it's showing 65%, but we know it's less, but we don't know exactly what it is. There's just no way of
Yeah,
telling.
I've been there in
Now
my
we can,
reports.
yeah, we've all been there in the reports. We kind of have to talk it away. Um, but now we can see that, okay, we're showing less than 5%. Your pipe's in good shape. It's oval. You might have some other uh, things going on, such as maybe buckling or something like that. But as far as corrosive damage, you're in good shape. Um, and that kind of leads me into the next feature that I also want to demonstrate, and that's the 3D viewer, because this is quite an interesting thing to look at. So let's look at the 3D viewer and see what it looks like. So all it is I'm going to click on the 3D view button at the top, and I'll just move this to the side. And this is the new 3D viewer. It opens up directly into the space. It's on its separate window. You can move it around if you want, but it's a good way to visualize the recordings. I like looking at it in kind of a downhole view, similar to a downhole camera. And you can just scroll through and see, yeah, you can clearly see the ovality here, your major axis here, your minor axis here. That's really interesting. It's a good feature if you wanted to save this image and put it in a presentation or your report. You can clearly save your image there. Let's go look at that one feature at the top that was an actual penetrative feature. So I'm just going to highlight that on the screen, and then I'm going to sync my view real quick. And that's going to sync my view here. So if I kind of scroll down, I'm going to use the mouse this time. You can see that penetrative feature, and the rest of the wall looks like it's in good shape. So this is kind of the first version of the 3D viewer. There's going to be more features coming, but it's a good way to be able to visualize whatever you're seeing in a 3D environment. I know customers really like that because it does help them visualize what we're showing them in the
Yeah.
reports. So yeah, that's it. Joe, I was curious. I know you've talked to a lot of customers that are using Clarity and potential customers. Have they said anything in particular about these features?
Yes, actually, since you're just talking about the oval compensated maximum penetration, if I think back to when we released version 1, we had some beta testers at that point. And these guys were lucky enough to get in at that point and make some requests, give us some suggestions for new features. So we leap on those basically whenever we can. We leap on those. That's why I'm asking in the chat as well if anybody's got any ideas for time-lapse matching, just as an aside. And one of our beta testers there was asking, how do I calculate penetration more accurately when I've got a deformed pipe? So we worked on this new feature for them specifically. So we're just wrapping up our beta phase for version 2, but that's not to mean that you can't get on board at this point now with a new trial and feed us some new ideas. So if there's anything that you're being hampered with at the moment, if there's a new feature that you have an idea for, please let us know because we're actively developing Clarity at this point. So it'd be great to hear from you. Thanks, Corey and Ferris. I'm going to just finish off with sharing my screen now for one of our other new features in V2. Right, so what are we looking at here? So this is a different data set, fully processed. Um, at this point, I'm thinking to myself, well, I know this data set in and out. I know everything about it, and I know my customers' objectives. And in my head, I've got the answer, but I have to deliver that somehow. So depending on who you're delivering to, your format, your content, all these things are probably different. What I found frustrating in the past is I wish this guy, I could just phone him up and tell him, but they're going to need a record. They're going to need something to put away in the filing cabinet for later. So they'll need a report of some sort. Um, what we're trying to do is solve some of those problems rather than spend sort of 2 or 3 hours in Word and Excel. That's why we developed custom reporting and the AI reporting especially. So I've set up my screen specifically to start taking screen grabs, which we'll come across later. One thing I'll just show you first of all that you should do ahead of starting a report is fill in the project properties. Sometimes this gets skipped, but when it comes to custom reporting, these actually feed into your final report. So all the usual sort of admin stuff like field names and job numbers and tool type and such. Then we're going to go over to the top here to custom report. And we're going to start working our way through a template. what we're going to do is we're going to use Clarity to start taking project values out of the project and into your report template. We'll see the template at the end, and you'll see how you can customize it and format it to your own needs. It's 100% customizable by yourself at being a Word document, or we can help you create sets of documents as well. So a few slightly less interesting tabs here. Perhaps you use a footer, perhaps you won't. We're drawing from our own experience. Obviously, if you don't know Anso, we've been writing caliper reports for decades. So we've got a lot of experience to draw on in terms of what we think you might want. When it comes to the report template, these are all customizable and optional, so you don't have to have these things. But perhaps you want a little section here to say why it is your customer is running a caliper in the first place. Some survey objectives. It probably gets a bit more specific than that. Perhaps another section to say how the logging job went. Any issues that perhaps during acquisition that will come up during your interpretation, you might want to mention there. So yeah, bit of admin to start. And then we get to the exciting place where we just click a button and see what happens. So what's it doing in the background? What we've got here is a set of analyst-led prompts and boilerplate comments that we're going to ask Clarity to go away, find those values within the project, and then report back. And along the way back, it's going to ask an LLM to make these comments readable and clear and concise, and make sure that they can fit straight into your report. So I'm just going to make them a little bit bigger here. Yeah. So we've got some comments that you're probably always going to put into a report. So talking about the general condition overall from top to bottom. We're going to talk about the mean ID. You're always going to talk at least about the maximum penetration, I would say. That's very rare that why you would not do that. In the executive summary section, it combines some of these comments into one, but when we go to the interpretation results, we see that we're going to separate them out into a bit more and give them all a bit more space. Specifically when you've got more than one pipe size like we do today, it's able to zone those comments out. We can look at the maximum penetrations, the minimum IDs in each of the pipe sizes separately. So it's kind of odd that something I think is really quite cool. It should look a little bit more flashy in some ways. There's a bit more animation going on here, because what it's done here effectively is I could perhaps drop these comments straight into an email and give my customer a phone call now and say, look, you can get on with your day or your following operation because I've got your comments right here, and then perhaps follow up with a more fully featured report. But what we do give the option for is to carry on when it comes to creating the report, to perhaps saving you a bit more time in terms of creating screen captures. So we come to this tab here. I'm going to say there's quite a few options here. I'm going to ask for a full range overview. I know that this is just casing, so I don't have any items I want to look at today, but you can specify those. Just for the interests of speed, all I'm interested in are the maximum penetrations, and it'll give you one image of the highest penetration for each pipe size in this case. I can define the zoom around the feature. I'll take a full joint view as well and a cross section as well. Before I generate the document, these charts and tables, again, we're drawing on our own experience from our own deliverables. Common to all of our reports are charts like these, and we'll take a closer look in the report document when it's made. I will keep asking this question. If you've got any particular charts and tables and histograms or whatever it might be that you use in your reports, at the moment, we could customize the output. If you're really keen and you want to start doing it yourself, we could maybe even look at opening it up so to be customer side. Just let me know on that. And hit the button. I should have. There we go. So it's asking where to save. And we'll see what it comes up with.
I was going to say the reporting sometimes takes longer than the analysis.
True.
So this is really nice
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
curate your comments as a starting point on the report's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Something I should have said earlier, the bullet the AI reporting comments. That's something as well we could look at perhaps opening up or taking suggestions for. If you always find yourself having to type up a similar comment each time, then please let us know, because any inspiration we've got to save you time, we'd like to start including. So here we go. This is our default template, so it's obviously got our logos and our colors everywhere. But if you can imagine this in your own format and content, then that's what we're aiming for, is to save you some time on that front as well. The admin side of things, so that I mentioned right at the beginning there, with the company names and the well names. Quite frankly, very annoying things in Word include table of contents. So they're quite fiddly sometimes until you set them up right. So this is all getting done for you. We're labeling images for you as well. Again, paperwork, we're saving time there, just taking it from the project properties, pipe sizes. Here we start to see the editable fields that we had earlier. And again, you can of course just carry on editing those now that you're in Word. And here are the AI reporting comments. You don't have to use an executive summary if you want to just go straight to an interpretation result. Perhaps you've got a bit more time to turn this report around and you want to expand on these things, perhaps in your own time in the office outside of a fast turnaround. Yeah, feel free to do that. And here we go with the templates. Sorry, the charts, tables, and histograms and such. Scroll those all straight into your Word document. Now, I didn't mention earlier, this is something, if you're using Clarity for screen captures, then the dimensions of your screen are taken into account, because it is actually grabbing your screen. So you might find a little bit of editing is required when it comes to some of these images. But starting from this point, I would say, rather than having to use an app to capture the images in the first place and then paste them into Word, perhaps you're in PowerPoint. It just depends on what works for you. But having them pasting straight into Word and just making a couple of quick crops, I think, is always a good idea. It's a great place to start. The cross sections as well are tending to be a little bit large just now, but there we go. It's on the right page now. There we go. That's me basically done with that feature there. So we'll scroll quickly past the other images. There's not an awful lot going on in this well. The features are quite small, but it's given me the max penetration for that pipe size there. Gives you the depths, gives you the penetration values. I think all you could ask for when it comes to a figure title. At the very end, we've got the tabulated data as well. So that's a really useful view for it. Sometimes that is the report for some people, if you want to just leap straight to this and perhaps those AI comments about the survey in general. Depending on your turnaround time and your customer requirements, that could be your report. As simple as that. And then we're finished. That's the end of that report.
So are we going to lose our jobs?
No. You're going to move on to more exciting things because you've freed up an awful lot of your time now. That's the idea here.
I'm a bit worried
Yeah.
with this all AI stuff.
I think we're okay for a while yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to
Let's
save
hope
you the
it's true.
time just now. Yeah, I mean that's a good question. That's our goal, is to really broaden out this task to more people. So kind of regardless of your skill level, and I think more importantly, the time that you're allowed to devote to this task. Um, it'll get you to 80, 90% of the way there to a complete result.